Next slide, please, Sam. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes, if it's okay, and just introduce my themes for my year as president, if you haven't seen them already. So the first one is working at height. It's something that's incredibly close to my heart and is one of the biggest still one of the biggest causes of significant injuries and fatalities across the world. So we want to look at that in a bit more detail and see what we can do to nudge the dial and make those numbers reduce slightly. The next area is around personal and professional well-being. I spend an awful lot of time talking about well-being and looking after everybody else, but I want to look at it from a slightly different angle and how we as health and safety professionals look after ourselves with our own mental health and our own well-being when we spend so much time looking after everybody else. And the last one is around coaching skills and how we can add those to our toolkits to make ourselves better IOSH professionals. So without further ado, that is more than enough from me. Oh, sorry. So we've got a Q&A. So if you have any Q&A, have any questions that you want us to answer, please pop them in the question and answer section. The chat is there for us to say hello and connect and leave any comments that you have. If we run out of time, which with a lot of you in here, we may well run out of time for all of your questions. We will take them away and try and get as many of them answered as possible. But without any further ado, now I've said that bit, I'd like to introduce Kirsty Dickens, who is the Professional Development and Standards Manager for IOSH, and she's going to go through a presentation on CPD. So over to you, lovely Kirsty in yellow.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly, for that beautiful introduction and wonderful to see your strategy for the year. So thank you for sharing that. Hello, everybody. I'm Kirsty Dickens, the Professional Development and Standards Manager at IOSH, and I'm very passionate about CPD. So welcome and thank you so much for coming along to hear me talk about it. So I think someone might be talking. You might want to pop yourself on mute just in case you can't hear me. Just pop yourself on mute. Thank you. So what is CPD? CPD is everything. Sitting in this room today is CPD. Me presenting is CPD. So it's something that makes you a more efficient professional. So I'm sitting here today. This is probably the most I've ever presented to. I was muted. Can everyone hear me?
We've got you.
Hello. I don't know how far I got, so I'm going to just continue as I was. So CPD is around what makes you a professional. Sitting here today presenting, supporting and answering questions is my CPD, and this is the largest amount of people I've presented to in my career. So chatting with colleagues, having conversations about the lessons they've learnt in their area of the business, reading articles. These are just some, they're not exhausted, they're just some really important CPD activities that you could do that you probably didn't know you could, that, you know, there was an option for you. So listening to a podcast, reading, implementing guidance. There's so many things that people don't realise that can contribute towards your CPD. So I'd like to see that 543 people today will be inputting their CPD on how fantastic the CPD presentation was for you today and what you gained from it. So no pressure, everybody. I'd like to see that by the end of this week, if possible. That was a joke, but please do implement this if you are looking for CPD activities to input. So over to the next slide. So what does CPD achieve? This is such an important slide for me to share, because your professional status is very important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the profession. Your membership want you to do this. This isn't IOSH and me sitting there going, you must do this. Your profession are asking you to do it. So it gives you the credibility that you deserve. It keeps your skills up to date. It keeps your knowledge up to date. It meets your goals. It meets your careers. It increases your employability. That's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's so important that you take the time to protect your profession and your industry for your members and for your clients and for your customers. nothing but a bit of career satisfaction where you look at your activities and think, I actually did that and I researched that and I'm now an expert in that area, or I've actually understood how to work through that process. It allows you to set goals, which is very important. So there's so many things that it allows you to do, and there's probably more that mean more to everyone else in different interpretations of what CPD is. And you may think that there's a lot more within that presentation slide that you value. But for me and for your professionals that work side by side with you, it's about safeguarding your professional status and how I can help you do that. So moving on to the next slide. How does it work? So there's 4 different areas. So if we just keep tabbing there for me, please, Sam, it'll come up nicely, all 4 of the areas. So assess and plan. That's our competency framework and self-assessment, and it allows you to go in, it asks you a series of questions, multiple choice questions that you answer, and it allows you to identify your strengths and weaknesses against IOSH's competency framework. So it's a really good detailed plan of how you can align yourself to IOSH. So make sure you do log in and you have a look at that. Do take some time though, because it isn't a quick process. It's a process that allows you to really reflect on where you are within that competency framework. The second step is to complete a planned process for your skills and knowledge. So that's your personal development plan. So that is coming away from your self-assessment and going, okay, so my areas of stakeholder management don't appear to be as good as I thought they were. So I'm now going to put that into my priority list to make sure that I update my knowledge in that area. So you get to set and you get to prioritize at the time your activities when it's right for you. Okay, so number 3 is actually recording that activity. So I've identified that my stakeholder management skills are not as well as they could be. I have developed my skills in that area by researching some information around that area. So maybe an IOSH guide that we've put together for you, which indicates how many hours that took you to digest, read. And that's just a guide that just gives you guidance rather than an actual. Now I'm going to talk about what I learned from that. So that's when I record my CPD activity. Now I'm going to apply it and reflect. Reflection is so important. And it's something that I perhaps struggle with as well. So, there are tools within our CPD platform to allow you to do that. So just simply asking the question, why have I done this? What did I gain from it? And what am I going to do with it? 3 simple questions that you wouldn't even believe would help you reflect. So quite straightforward, but yet it absolutely blows my mind to be able to sit down and put it into words. But please do answer those 3 questions. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so ethics is something that's it's not, I wouldn't say it's brand new, but it's still new in terms of the we've introduced it in 2023, but it's so important to stand up for what's right. So it's not a requirement for any other member outside of chartered and chartered fellow, but we still encourage you to review it because are you doing things the right way? You stand in ethical dilemmas all the time as IOSH professionals and go, which one do I do? How do I work around that? The ethical e-learning and assessment will help you navigate that. So we don't recommend that you don't do it. We encourage you to do it, but obviously chartered and chartered fellows, it is mandatory to complete. But, staying up to date on ethics and consideration is also very important. And that e-learning and assessment allows you to do that. And it also is linked to the IOSH Code of Conduct as well. So everything we do is, again, very much aligned to how we operate as the profession and the competency framework as well. So do take some time to have a look at that. There are 3 modules and then there are assessments after that as well for each module. And you can go into the modules as often as you wish to. So moving on to the next slide. Staying CPD compliant is very important. And as a member of IOSH, you should be recording 30 hours of CPD on Blueprint annually. So that's every 12 months. And when I say annually, I mean the starting point of your membership. So if your membership's due on the 1st of January 2025, your CPD will run from the 1st of January 2025 to the 31st of December 2026. So it takes you for that, 2025, sorry, I was giving you a couple of years there. So it runs for a full 12 months and that's aligned to your renewal year. And it's important to help, to maintain your competence and demonstrate your dedication to the profession. It's such a powerful thing to do to reflect in advance of your career. I know it would seem that I'm reading that off the screen, but those are the words that are extremely important. It is a benefit to be able to have a platform that allows you to be able to demonstrate your competence and capability, and for IOSH to stand by you and go, yep, Kelly Nicoll is a compliant individual and we support her through the through the profession, and I can confirm that is correct. If you are a chartered or chartered fellow member, you must record 30 hours of CPD as annually, as well as the ethical e-learning and assessment, as I've explained. And it's important that you renew this on an annual basis. Your ethics will be revised every year. So that's a slide around staying compliant and keeping your CPD up to date. So 30 hours. Some would say, oh, straightforward, I could probably do that over a couple of months. Some people might go, oh, that seems quite high. Just get in contact with us. We can help you. I started off with this presentation with you probably not realizing that CPD could be something as a conversation or attending a presentation. You know, just digest that information, have a think about it, utilize your personal development plan, utilize the CPD resources that we have available for you that indicate hours that you could apply to each of those resources. So we have built a product that aligns to the competency framework that points you in the direction of learning to enable you to become a all-rounded professional. So moving on to the support provided slide, we're here for you. We're not here to smack your bum in a polite possible way. We're here to guide you. However, we will be protecting the standard. So it's very important that you reach out to us and let us know your circumstances. Let us know your issues so we can support you and guide you. I think that's very important for you to understand that. Just remember that CPD is anything that you find beneficial, and you can align it to the competency framework to allow you to be able to develop yourself and your skills. So cpd.inquiries@iosh.com is my wonderful CPD team, and you're in absolutely fantastic hands. So please do reach out. For more information on the website, there is the link, which is iosh.com/CPD, for more information on the process and logging in, etc. So I believe that's the end of my slides. So I will take some questions.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. So we've got Cynthia and Doc here to talk about their experiences with CPD. I'm not sure whether we've got Ross because I haven't seen him. So if he's here, like, don't wave at me because I can't see everybody. But if you three wouldn't mind popping your cameras on if you can, and taking yourselves off mute. And we've got some questions in the chat that I'm going to bring up while you guys are doing that. So we've had hang on a second. I found a really good one, and now I've lost it.
I think it's
Everybody,
because I've probably answered it. I've just answered it. Sorry, I've been a little
no,
bit
no, no,
excitable and
no,
answered
it's
it.
great. I like it. So Abby's made a comment about the ethical e-learnings are quite a lot of reading and not SLD friendly.
Okay.
Given the increased awareness around SLD, it would be great to see these modules a bit more user friendly. I'm sure Kirsty is going to say, yes, we're
I got
looking at
very
that.
excited. Yes, I am looking at that. So being neurodiverse myself, I completely understand that you know, text heavy isn't for me. I prefer videos. I prefer instructions. Not that that's not for everybody, but you know, there is some areas of improvement that we have identified. And as the competency framework is under review again, as you know, we've communicated to the membership, it's also important to explain that the ethics does come in line with that. So that is something that I will be looking at this year. If I can ask if that individual would like to support me with that, I will be obviously looking into having some help from our members. So if they wouldn't mind just dropping me their name on the privately on a chat, and I'll be more than happy to take their name down so they can support me with that.
That sounds great. That's what we love about these kind of webinars. So Julia asks, how do we tailor our CPD to our role to keep it relevant? Doc, Cynthia, have you got any thoughts on that?
You want me to go first?
Go for it.
All right. It's nice to see over 592 members on call. That has been an amazing conversation from Christy and Kelly, of course. One of the reasons why people, because I've been seeing the chats, people dropping a lot of comments, that's to say that people are busy. And one of the challenges is the time to sit down and integrate CPD into your busy schedule. And one of the things that has worked is aligning your CPD to your day-to-day tasks. But before you are able to do that, if you listen to Christy very well, she said that the first thing to do is to do an assessment and tailor it down to the competency metrics, and that addresses each of that element in the task that you're doing. So for instance, let's say one of your job is to do an internal audit of your location or another location. That actually sits around the competency well, compacts of the IOSH competency framework. You could consciously plan the audit, go through the audit, and use that in terms of your tasks aligning with your auditing skills or auditing activities. And after that, probably after the audit, your learnings from that audit that you have taken away, what went wrong, what went well, how can you improve in your next audit? That becomes an opportunity for you to make yourself a better auditor in the future as around either your internal organization or a certification audit. That's a critical example how you can tally your job tags to also become your CPD focused activity that addresses a gap that you have identified through assessment using the IOSH competency framework. That would be my submission. Thank you.
I think that's really reasonable. One of the things that I find really helpful is I ask myself 4 questions. So why did I do it? What did I learn? What have so why did I did it? Why did I do it? What did I do? What did I take away from it? And what will I continue to do from that piece? And just putting those questions in my reflection makes sure that I'm actually covering that really nice reflective bit. There seems to be some confusion as well. Sorry, everybody's talking about 500 words, 500 characters. It's 500 characters that you need to have completed for your CPD reflection. So it's not as challenging as I think some people think it might be. And also, I find, small cheat. If I put those questions in, I've reduced the amount that I need to type if it's something really short.
And that is absolutely fine, Kelly, because what it does is it helps you navigate. So please do that. That's what we want you to do. We leave it empty because that's your reflection. And if you found it useful, please do that. What we have noticed from that 500 count is that it has caused some confusion. So we are working to make that a lot clearer, because 500 words seems quite daunting, but 500 characters is a lot less. It includes spaces. So Kelly, the way you're doing it is absolutely reasonable. It allows you to create that structure for yourself, and it is 500 count characters rather than words. So you're quite right. There is one thing that I've noticed in the questions, if you don't mind me coming in there, Kelly, is around, so I've just had a question around the accessibility of Blueprint. Now, there is an accessibility tool. We're not saying we're perfect. We still need to develop. We still need to make things right. I am looking at how we can have voice recordeds uploaded to Blueprint to allow people to be able to speak in a phone. Like I've said, reflection isn't something that I relish in terms of writing. So I'll pick up my phone and go, this is what I did today. Whilst we're waiting for me to implement that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using a transcribed and copy and pasting it. It gives you that freedom to be able to do that. So that's just something a tool that I use. I'll transcribe it and then I'll copy and paste it into my reflection for my professional body and for IOSH. So just some advice that I would like to share in terms of how I would operate with reflection. Thank you, Kelly.
No, that's brilliant. Somebody's asked me to type the 4 questions out. Now I need to try and remember them properly.
They are in the reflection guides on the CPD. Everything that you've just said is within those reflection guides.
I love the idea of being able to do just doing a voice note on that reflection. I think that's going to be really beneficial. Not just for people with, dyslexia or neurodivergency, but those of us that are also incredibly busy trying to juggle an awful lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've had very specific questions around, I'm doing a lot of fire risk assessments, I'm doing food safety. Are these all still relevant? And I'm going to jump in and say, yes, absolutely. It's increasing your knowledge, it's increasing your competency. It absolutely is. Doc, are you? Yes.
Hello.
Oh, goodness me. He just appeared like magic there, looking slightly Dr. Evil today, which I'm appreciating. I'm appreciating the vibe today. Um, have you done anything that's slightly like less obvious CPD that you want to share before I bore everybody with my Ted Lasso story again?
Oh, well, I'm going to jump in with the Ted Lasso quote.
Yeah.
Or half of it, the be curious bit.
Mm,
I think because there is so much material available to us on Blueprint, I don't have a scattergun approach, but if I've got a spare hour, I just dip in and have a look at what I might be interested in. And I think one of the things that worries me about being in the event space is that I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm not a specialist in anything.
mm,
I've worked hard on sustainability over the past 3 years. Um, so if I see something that looks interesting in fire safety, I'll just dip into that.
mm,
Recently, I've been looking at, this sounds awful, but I've been looking at the high suicide rates in agriculture and wondering
mm,
why that is happening. That took me off onto looking at forestry, and that took me into water. So I I just take myself on a little journey and I just land up wherever I find it interesting. And then I kind of do it perhaps backwards. I fit it into the competency framework. So I'm not looking at the competency framework and going, I need to do that today. I just find something and go, that's really fascinating. And there are so many people on this call that are doing good stuff. I see what they're doing and I'll go, yeah, I'm going to go and listen to something that you might have done and listen to a podcast.
mm.
I'm a little less structured. I do get it done. I just maybe not so structured as perhaps some of our colleagues, and definitely not as structured as Cynthia. She's smiling at me, and I'm feeling embarrassed now.
But
Can I jump in there, please?
Of course.
Right. So let me reflect I understand that the people on call might be at different level of the profession. Some might
Mm,
be early careers, mid, and advanced. And I think the debate is at the advanced, well, he's not structured. So I want to speak to people who are, for example, looking at career progression. I've seen people, young professionals, ask me, why should I actually still be in IOSH and how can it help me to get onto the next level, right? That is also where having a targeted structural approach, for instance, I am a health and safety officer or a supervisor or a coordinator, and I'm looking at getting to the managerial position. And at that point, I will also begin to plan structurally on how to grow my leadership skills, right? So
mm,
I will be intentional to look at where are the gaps in my leadership skill. And if you look at the competency metrics again, it helps you to go through it to see where the gaps are. And we have a whole lot of already made structured informations, materials in the blueprint already that you could explore those areas and then target how you can increase your leadership skill. And then at
mm.
the end of the day, you can come back and ask yourself, what did I do? How did I do it? What did I learn from it? How do I move forward from that? That also helps in giving you success stories in career progression. Thank you.
And I think that's really important as well, Cynthia, is Blueprint gives us a whole suite of anything from kind of a 15-minute to like a couple of hours. Gives you a whole suite of resources that are free and available for us to make use of. Um, it's Steve's asked a question on, is there a guide on Blueprint to help you find resources? Well, there's a whole load of them on there, which is really helpful. And a bit like both of you, it's very much this is what, I've done my PDP. These are the areas that it's telling me that I need to work on or need to improve on, or actually from a this is what I want in my next step in my career, and now I need to figure out what I need to do to get there. You know, and oftentimes, an awful lot of the mentors that we have across IOSH are really knowledgeable around Blueprint and how to apply it. Somebody earlier in the chat, I keep losing track because things keep moving. You know, somebody said that, you know, Blueprint can feel very overwhelming when you first have a look at it. And I think that's possibly, you know, quite a fair comment. What I will say is branches, you know, our sector groups, our communities, you know, there are loads and loads of webinars and other sessions that go on, specifically looking at Blueprint. I know Doc has done it over in North Wales, where he's literally sat in a coffee shop, you know, for a couple of hours, buying copious amounts of coffee, and people have turned up with their laptops and gone, I don't know where I'm starting with Blueprint, and they've sat and gone through it and found that really helpful. He actually did it in Manchester as well. He didn't think I saw it, but I did. He gave somebody a bit of a Blueprint coaching session in on the stand in Manchester a couple of weeks ago. So there are an awful lot of resources. The the bones of it is, I think when you get to your dashboard, you'll have your, you know, this is your CP, click on here for your CPD record. These are the elements from your PDP. And then on the side for me, so on the right hand side for me is resources. And you know, this is how many resources you've accessed. This is how many you can find. So they are absolutely there. So I'm going to bore everybody with my Ted Lasso story. I love Ted Lasso. I think it's phenomenal. Curious rather than judgmental is something that has really resonated with me. And although everybody thinks it's about football, it's about so much more. It's about coaching and leadership and creating cultures, like really trusting cultures, and kind of watching people develop, which is really, really interesting. So a couple of years ago, I actually didn't do my full 30 hours of CPD just watching Ted Lasso, which I could have done with 3 series. But there were some episodes that really, really resonated with me. And I recorded those as 45 minutes or an hour of CPD, because actually I feel that that's made me a better leader, and a better manager, which is what it's all about, isn't it? It's us finding the things that fit. And for some people, the resources that are there on Blueprint, you know, are fantastic. And for some of us, you know, we go slightly wider. I'm just going to check the Q&A before I go back into the go delving back into the chat and see whether I've got any. Oh no, Kirsty's on it. Kirsty's answered all of my questions on the Q&A, so that's fine.
Kelly, I've picked up one from the
Go
chat.
for it.
Nina asked, how often do we need to update our PDP? Well, it's obviously, you know, annually when you reset, but there's something that I learned, and Kirsty, I did have to come to you, and you did have to point out that you can't reassess yourself on the PDP unless you've actually closed out all the actions that you gave yourself the year before. So, Kirsty, do you want to jump in? That
Yes,
was a
of
good
course.
question.
I think there was something that I wanted to sort of jump in when you said, Rick, that you do your CPD when it's relevant for you, and I just wanted to come back into that, and before I answer this question, and say that is absolutely fine.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm in trouble then.
No, not at all. Well, because everyone does things differently, don't they? And I think that's the campaign that we're promoting at the moment. So Kirsty Dickens will do her CPD every month because she doesn't want to forget the key points, and her brain works in a very different way. So she doesn't store information as well as Rick, for an example. So I will do mine as often as I possibly feel I can. But then there's members who will do it once every 6 months. There'll be members that do it a month before. All of that is absolutely fine. But as long as you do it and you're explaining that you've done it and your reflection is there, you can be your 1 monthers, You can be your one, you can be your every month, you can be your every 2 weeks. How you do your CPD, as long as it's done within that 12 months, that is what we care about. So in terms of the personal development plan, it's very important. So how often you reset it is completely up to you. Rick does his annually, that's absolutely fine. But you're quite right. You need to close down what you've already got in there. Whether it is, I'm not going to quite do it just yet, I might move it. You can move the dates and you can move things around. That's absolutely fine. You know, we have created a structured process that you manage, that you are in control of. So yes, so you can move that if you choose to do that. There's been some few questions in the chats that I think are quite relevant just to explain, is that, you know, there's sometimes the self-assessment pulls out something that isn't relevant to you at that time. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to do that at that point. You can come back to it, because you know, you might be working in the industry, or you're too busy at the moment, and actually that's something that I don't want to focus on quite right now, but I'll come back to it. Again, that is absolutely fine. You navigate this. This is your CPD. We've just enabled tools to be able to help you identify your areas of development and strengths. So I've gone around the houses, but I kind of feel like I've incorporated a few questions, a few answers to some of the questions that I think is important just to share, that people have been asking them. Rick, have I answered your question? I did go around the houses and in the trees a little bit, but that is me. That's my style, isn't it?
No, that was great. You talk about in scattergun though. Now see, Kelly talked about that quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." I know that's a Walt Whitman from a Walt Whitman poem. Now my brain is telling me to start reading this book. So it's Walt Whitman prose. I'd never read poetry, but look what it's done to me. Kelly, you're having a terrible effect on me.
That was quite an evil laugh as well. Sorry. Um, Ross is here. Ross is here somewhere. So Ross is, if I remember correctly, he is
Hello.
Hi. You're a tech IOSH, aren't you?
I am a tech IOSH, yes. Yeah.
So although CPD is not compulsory for you to do as part of your IOSH membership, why do you do it? What do you find useful about it? And how is it helping?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'm doing a lot of training at the moment, trying to work up to grad status, all that sort of stuff. And I find it helps with structuring the material and structuring my own learning, because I'm doing a degree at the same time as doing my IOSH diploma. I do a lot of learning in between my day-to-day work. So I find it helps me structure, it helps me figure out where I am, essentially. So as I'm adding things on there, full disclosure, I went on this morning and realised I hadn't had anything since before Christmas. So I thought, right, I'll get on there and just see where I am with it. And what I find is that by doing that, I can monitor my own progress, monitor my own learning, and it helps me to understand where I am in my career and, you know, how far I've got to go, essentially, you know, just by seeing that list, by seeing that in front of me. And just a quick one before I finish. I'm very sorry for being late. I had some problems connecting.
It's absolutely fine. It's lovely to see you.
You too.
So we've had an interesting comment made in the chat about we're employed to do a job which is 40 hours a week. We're not necessarily employed to do our CPD. I'm going to push back gently and suggest that, you know, I did my diploma quite a while ago now. I think, you know, our profession moves very quickly. We have new risks that we are coming up against. You know, we're doing an awful lot of focus on AI and new developing technologies, you know, robots, drones, all of that kind of stuff is going to have an impact, and we're going to have to be able to manage that from, you know, within our job roles. And I think that, essentially we are a profession that does not stop learning. There is always something more to learn, and a new way of doing things and a new way of reflecting. you know, we've talked about the 500 characters and the way that we can actually kind of, if it is something that's quite quick and short, we can shorten that by putting the questions in, because I find that really helpful as a prompt as well. Rich has just asked, did I understand that correctly, that CPD is not compulsory for tech IOSH grades? Am I right in that, Kirsty?
CPD is a requirement for that grade, yes.
Sorry, it is a requirement for that
It
grade.
is, yeah.
That's my fault. I got overexcited. Yes, everybody, Doc's usurping everybody with his lovely puppy. So everybody's getting distracted by dogs now. Okay, let's have a look.
Same as me.
Same as me. Easily distracted by dogs, which I think is great.
On that question you just answered, Kelly,
Yeah.
I did an hour of CPD this morning while walking the dog. There was a reason why I let the dog jump up onto my knee. I listened to a really, really fascinating podcast, one of Prakash Sangali's podcasts on advancing technologies. Took me about 15 minutes to turn that into some words when I came back. It's just different ways of just different ways of completing the 30 hours, and it's still highly relevant, probably because I was relaxed when I was listening to it. It sunk in better as well, and I was able to draw across some parallels with the work I'm doing currently with EV charging. So just that linking it across.
Great. I think that's entirely fair. I think it is absolutely where we find it. I certainly don't do it every month. I put my plan in. I sit and, and then things will come to me, or I will, do a webinar and I will go and immediately want to reflect on it. But then there are also times where it takes a little while for that to percolate in my brain and for me to be able to reflect it. So again, any three of you can answer this one. So for members who've been actively using Blueprint for CPD, what best practices or strategies would you guys recommend for engaging with the platform more effectively?
If I may, on this one.
Go for it, Ross.
So for me, it's about keeping it relevant and keeping it personable. So I found that by using the tools to recognize your own strengths and areas for improvement, I was able to pinpoint things that I needed to focus on. And I've tailored my learning towards that. And as a professional, I know that I've improved greatly just by using that as a tool.
I think that's great. Doc, any thoughts?
Not as profound as Ross, I'm afraid. I just write. Yeah. I just put everything in a Word document, and I retain the Word documents. So I know we've got a record on Blueprint, but I find it easier just to manipulate the words in using an old-fashioned Word document, and then I keep them, and that's another record. And sometimes they turn into blogs, which I find useful, particularly when IOSH put you on the spot and say, have an opinion on. So yeah, that's just a personal approach.
Thanks. So Terry has asked, and I think I'm going to bring Kirsty into this one as well. We've had a lot of questions around providing evidence. How do we provide? So how would we? First off, do we need to provide evidence every time we do a bit of CPD? And secondly, if we do need to provide evidence, how do we evidence that we've listened to a podcast?
Okay, so you don't have to provide evidence. The evidence is for you to be able to record your evidence. We look at it, of course, if we're conducting an audit, just so we can confirm that something's there. What we're looking for is your reflection. When we go in there, because you can upload something, a certificate, and just upload it, but actually, what did you gain from it? That's what we are really interested in, is that you're going to go, I've absorbed this, and I'm going to make myself a better professional IOSH expert, and I'm going to work to make myself, deliver on that piece of information. So you can upload your evidence to your activity. It's not a requirement for all activities. We encourage you to do it so you're storing your information, so you've got somewhere, so it's a little notebook for you, but you don't have to do it for every activity now.
Cool. That's good to know. Sorry, trying to scan through the chat, which seems to have exploded again. All right, so let's do another one. Let's look at the in fact, Steve's just popped one in, which is great. Thanks, Steve. Kirsty, do you or your team ever feed back to members on their CPD journey?
Yes, we do. So as a part, so if you ever were to ring or you were to ask a question from the CPD team, we tend to delve into your record and go, well, whilst we've got you, we're going to make sure that we provide you with as much information as we can. We also ring members as well, especially when we're coming up to the renewal period, and we want to make sure that you're doing your CPD so you're not affected, or you're not called for an audit. So we will give you a call and be like, hello, how are you? Should we have a look at your record? So we don't just go do your 30 hours. If you get in contact with us, we'll go, have you thought about resetting your professional development plan? It's been a couple of years now and we can see some outstanding action. So it's a very much a qualitative approach that we give, because we want you to get the best out of it. We don't want you to tick a box. We want you, sometimes it's okay to tick a box because you're very busy, but sometimes we really want you to invest yourself. This is so important, but we do appreciate that people are at different points of their lives, and sometimes enough is just the standard you can provide at that point. But we do like to provide you with some best practice support just to get, so you can get the best out of your CPD.
I think that's entirely fair. And I think that is one of the things that we forget sometimes, is that IOSH's, Kirsty's team are absolutely brilliant and are totally there to be able to support us with any questions or concerns that we've got. And yeah, and if you want to ask her to have a little look and provide some feedback, that's also great.
Kelly, sorry, I'm jumping
No,
in.
you
I'm
cannot
jumping all
jump
over you.
in. No, okay, of course, go for it.
Kirsty and her team might actually do something different when you ask for an audit or you get called to audit. Kirsty, a few years ago, you actually told me to slow down a little bit. I was
tell
very,
anyone that I said that.
But it for me was the really, really good feedback was, focus on quality, not quantity. And that has really, really sunk in. So now, I mean, I'm not in it every day, but I do something every week. I enjoy it, and I'm not expecting everybody else to enjoy it, but I just like that journey.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think if you are curious and you do want to learn, there are health and safety touches every single industry that you could possibly think of. I think somebody was chatting earlier about she did some CPD, or they did some CPD for a job role that had got chemical weapons in it, or and actually, how do you go and if that's not in your wheelhouse, going and learning about that is phenomenally interesting. We know as health and safety professionals that we learn from each other. We take from other industries and we learn across. And I think, the more that we can do that within our own CPD as well, the better. Sorry, okay. So I'm sure some people will be aware that IOSH are now looking at imposing some CPD sanctions as well. So I think this is a Kirsty and then on to Cynthia, Doc and Ross. So in light of those sanctions, how can members stay proactive in maintaining their CPD, especially if we're feeling overwhelmed by the process?
Okay. I think it's a really good question. And I'd hope to think that throughout this session, we've been quite clear that there isn't a right or wrong way to do it. It just needs to be done within that 12 months. So IOSH will send you reminders. Woohoo, we're here. Don't forget. We will constantly remind you, and that's through your renewal notices, through reminder emails, through Blueprint. And obviously, you're going to get a call from one of my wonderful team to go, hello, don't forget us. So we are promoting and pushing as much as we can to get in contact with you and help you. there is an element of responsibility as a member that you need to take here, and that's to allow us to help you. So if you are going through a difficult time and that, you know, you're out of work, for example, and you've not been able to apply yourself, you get in contact with us. We have reasonable adjustments, we have mitigating circumstances, we can support you in that area. And if you're genuinely too busy, we can help you. We can sit down with you and go, oh, okay, well, let's have a look at your record. Okay, Rick, you've got 25 hours here. You need 5 hours left. Let us help you navigate that. But as members, you are responsible for that record. We can help you and guide you, and we can lead you to the water, but we can't make you drink it, but we can do our damnedest to help you get there. So it's about communicating with us, asking for help, telling us your circumstances, and allowing us to put adjustments into place for you. However, there is a requirement of 30 hours and ethics for chartered and chartered fellows. So it's very important that you meet that requirement, but we will help you to do that if you allow us. Does that help?
I think that's really important. There is that element of, you know, Kirsty's team is absolutely there to help and support us. But she is not yet a mind reader, I don't think.
No, not yet. I'd be a millionaire if I was.
That's
I'd probably
disappointing.
still work here because I quite like what I do. But yeah, I think I'd be quite well off on a yacht at the moment. Yeah.
That's entirely fair. I think I probably would be as well. But yeah, we're not, I think that's the thing, is we're not mind readers in the same way that, you know, in our professional lives, we can't help somebody if we don't know that there's something going on. You know, IOSH can't provide the support that is readily available to us if they aren't aware that we are going through some difficulties. Perhaps we've got an illness, perhaps we've got an operation coming up, perhaps, you know, we've lost our job, or we're going on parental leave or something like that. Like, Kirsty and her team are there to support that and be able to help us through. They just need to know about it. And Kirsty's not scary at all. Not really, anyway. All right. So I'm just trying to find. Hang on. Tudor's gone. As Tudor said, the most consistent question I am asked is not about the 30 hours in the current year, but their records from previous years and the need to backdate. How does he answer that question as a mentor?
Okay, so we launched the new membership grades in November 2023, and we allowed a 12-month transition period to allow members to get themselves used to Blueprint and the new CPD compliance process. So making sure you can go in, use Blueprint ethics. So that 12 months obviously started from November 2024. So any backdated CPD is very important, and we do encourage you to go back, but we're looking we're looking forward now. So that's where we're looking, but we do encourage you to go for yourself and your own development, to go back, and we can help you do that as well. So if you do, I had a question in one of the questions, I've got stuff from October 2024, shall I put it in? I said, absolutely, because that's your learning. Although it won't fall into our sort of view for the future, it's important to you. Add it in, please do. So we're looking that way, but we do sometimes look backwards. Obviously, in terms of your renewal year, we will look retrospectively, but we're also looking for the future of your CPD as well. But we do encourage you to go and to update your CPD as far as you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not a decade ago, but
probably not. But I mean,
yeah.
if you found that useful, then absolutely.
I think that's entirely fair. And sometimes I flick back into I think that's a nice thing with Blueprint, is it gives you all of your previous years. So actually you can go back and go, oh, I did that course. What did I learn from it? Is it worth me going back and looking at that? So it's really nice for us to be able to go back and reflect on the learning that we've done in previous years as well. Cynthia,
Yes.
tell me about one of the most unusual bits of CPD you've managed to do.
I think though, because I'm in the space where I mentor a lot of young professionals in the field. So one of the greatest things that I've come across or handled is unclear CPD pathway. Before now, we've had some comments from Christy and Richard saying that it's all about the quality, not the quantity. So the question is always, how do I go from here? They don't know what can constitute a CPD activity for them that can help them. So basically, I use or have utilized two method, which is working on with my mentees using the IOSH Blueprint competency framework to identify for now what are the top 10 things we are going to are the issues here. From that top 10, for this year, we'll take up 2 or 3 based on our capability. And then as a mentor, I hold them accountable with defined timelines, right? We have our meeting times. So this has really helped a couple of people move from different roles to another higher role and still counting. So in summary, managing unclear CPV pathway is something that is very peculiar to the early professionals in IOSH, and using the competency framework, and of course mentoring. And I believe these are two resources that is very much available on the IOSH platform. Mentors, you can actually use that resource there if you do not have anyone around you to ensure that you can become better version of yourself and contribute to the higher world in saving people. So that's the thing I want to talk about today. Thank you.
I think that's really great. And Doc, I'm sure Doc is an incredible mentor as well. Like, I'm sure Doc, probably part of your CPD has come from being a mentor.
It has. I mean, I'm not going to pick on individuals, but well, actually, I'm going to pick on one. I'm learning a huge amount from future leader Carly Hughes.
Yeah, she's not here. It's fine.
No, I can say what I like now, can I? Carly's knowledge of not just knowledge of CDM, but how to apply it in the real world. It's excellent. So I lean into that a lot, and I love being reverse mentored. The other big benefit I get, I think, from mentoring is that again, I'm picking on North Wales branch. That's the one I know. We will do a share a CPD session. So I might talk for half an hour on something I've learned, and then we'll talk about it and we'll learn from it as a group. And I think that's benefited some of my colleagues in North Wales who are struggling to find time. So not a group approach, Kirsty, but a group support approach to effective CPD. Not doing the work for each other, but learning from each other. And that's been really helpful. I've actually learned a fair bit about the plastics industry, which I never thought I would need to know, but I'm finding it really interesting.
Right. So yeah, so as a mentor, as a reverse mentor, you can still learn and still have that as your CPD. Dr. Backhouse has asked a question around the importance of reflection, and if some people are kind of struggling to understand what that potentially looks like, are there some really good examples that IOSH might be willing to share, Kirsty? She's just staring at me.
Sorry, my audio went slightly and I was thinking, well, so I didn't hear that question. Could you just repeat it for me, please?
So importance of reflection, but if some people are kind of still really struggling with that kind of element, is there, would IOSH be willing to maybe share some really good examples of what that kind of reflective practice looks like?
Yes, absolutely. So again, that's something that we've learnt from, and the CPD team are building some really good reflection. What we need to be really mindful of, though, is creating what good and what bad looks like, because it's your reflection. And I don't want to go, oh, I don't think that was that great, but actually, it could be worthwhile to you. So I think the questions that we provided in the beginning is your good, is an open question that allows you to create what you felt was important. But yes, we are looking at how we can support members better with reflection by giving them steer and guidance. But those 4 questions are the starting block. But yes, there is something that we're working on with the CPD team to support members with reflection. So thank you. That was a great question.
I think that'll be really helpful for an awful lot of people as well. And I think that's fair. We're getting some very specific, very personal, not personal, but very kind of individual questions, potentially around. So Louise here has just said, that she's been doing her CPD since 2005, but Blueprint is only showing everything from 2022 onwards. Is there a possibility for her to be able to get the rest of her CPD back?
Yes, if you get in contact with the CPD team. So what we did is that when we moved over to Blueprint, so everything was held in Skillshare, which is our previous platform, we contacted all our members and said, we're closing this down. So go in, get everything you need. So I believe we took it as far back as we could possibly hold in our archive. So there is stuff in your archive that you'll have. Should you want more, that is something you would have to pick up with the CPD team. Bearing in mind, there was notice on that. So, you know, just speak to them and see what they'll be able to do for you. I'm sure we'll be able to. It's not something that we want to do on an often occasion because it's quite a lot of work around it. But get in contact with the CPD team and ask them for their support.
That's great. So I have a funny feeling that we could continue asking questions and talking about this for another couple of hours, but we've got like 2.5 minutes left. So instead of doing that, I will make sure that we finish on time. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, so much for your questions, your comments, your input. If you have any very specific questions, I would suggest that you not email Kirsty directly, but email her team. The email has been floating around the chat and was on one of the slides as well. Future dates, have we got those, Sam? Because I definitely can't remember them off the top of my head. But yeah, so our next By the Members for the Members session is Wednesday, the 2nd of April, and then followed by the 2nd of July, and then the 22nd of October, which will be my last one. We have a heap of volunteering vacancies available all the way from sitting on board committees to trustees all the way through. So please go and have a look at our volunteering section on the website if you haven't done that already and get applying. Vice President and President-elect applications are open up in the summer. And if you have any ideas or any desires of what you want us to talk about in the next few By the Members for the Members sessions, they are literally for you. It's what it says on the tin. So please do drop me an email or drop me a message on LinkedIn or however else you want to get hold of me with your ideas. But yeah, I hope everybody is going to go and spend 5 minutes checking this off on their CPD. I hope you found it useful, and please take care of yourselves and look after each other, and I will hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.